believe she-boys had something to do with that in Thailand.
I tend to believe that too. In fact, there was several psychics that I consulted during the whole thing the day that he passed away.
I lived in Bangkok and I experienced those little she-boys. They're such naughty things.
Really?
Oh yeah, they're after people like David Carradine all the time.
Well, Bangkok is the kind of a sex Disneyland, so to speak, and
drugs.
And drugs, and there were things that that they just came to a conclusion, and they assumed certain things in the press, and I believe there was information that was withheld. There were surveillance tapes that I believe that they had that they didn't disclose, and they could have been altered too. So, but in my investigation, there was an autopsy picture that I saw. It's still hard for me to remove myself emotionally to talk about it, but but this one picture that I saw, there were marks around his neck that I did not buy that anybody could have those marks and have it the way that they said in the press.
Right.
So that led me to believe that it was intentional. And there were other things in the book that I talk about, and there's too much to get into now, but it all added up to, I believe he was murdered.
Because the way he died, they found him there hanging.
Right.
And there's no one there.
Well,
but he brought somebody to the room. He had to, or someone came.
Well, there was another journalist, Mark Ebner, who did an article for Maxim magazine, and he went to Bangkok.
Right.
And he went into the hotel and he tested the closet racks where where they said David was found.
Right.
And that's not strong enough to hold someone like David's weight. So there were certain things that just did not jive.
Right.
And I think there was something on the tape that they didn't want people to see, and so therefore it was hidden. So that's.
So you went to investigate yourself there.
I didn't go there.
No,
I made a lot of phone calls. I spent a considerable amount of time, and it is all like a diary in the end chapters.
Because Thailand's very, very strange country.
I hear it's a beautiful country too.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I lived there for a while. I worked the American military bases.
Oh, my
when I was in Vietnam, I used to go back and forth to Bangkok and Taipei and Manila. I did all the RSL clubs, But Thailand was the place. Strange
evidently
place.
It still is.
And a lot of she-girls, ladies and gentlemen. You hear me out there? She-girls. You think we have them in West Hollywood? Well, go to Bangkok. You'll see. They're serious too. Those. They rob you in a blank of a...
Well, you mentioned watches. David always traveled with an expensive watch. He always wore a watch.
And he didn't have it with him.
There was no report that there was any watch found.
And the money.
And he had a considerable amount of money on him. So definitely I believe he was robbed. There's motive. It's just tragic.
You were truly in love with David Carradine.
Little girl from Bangkok. A little bit in love with David.
From the Valley. Fell in love with David.
Another boy from Hollywood.
And Hollywood. He's from Hollywood.
Right.
And you both got together and got married. And you really, I met you together all the time. Used to see him with his tuxedos and your gowns and beautiful and happy.
We were like little kids together when we did events and traveled. And there was just a very special bond. And people could see that, the love still existed, I believe, until he passed away. I recount a story where he still wore
how about the duplicate ring? Tell me about that.
The wedding band.
The wedding band.
When we separated, he lost our wedding ring. And I figured, we're separated, we're getting a divorce. And fast forward, I think it was like 2006, I ran into him at a vitamin store. And I looked at his hand, and he had remarried by that time, but I looked at his hand and I saw the ring, and I was like, whoa. And like, what are you doing with that? And he laughed and he said it was purchased for him. And I went, well, even if that's the case, why are you wearing something that's like a duplicate of a wedding ring? And he looked at me and he was going to say something, and then he changed it and just said, well, and he gave me that Kwai chain cane, and he wore that till the very end.
David was very shy. I remember him being very shy.
You know what? Not too many people know that.
Oh, I know.
Yes,
because Michael Parks. Michael Parks and him and myself, we're all good friends, And David and I used to go out with a lot with David in the 70s.
Yeah,
and
that
he
kept
was a
David,
shy guy.
It kept him back from certain things, like it was 1995. We were in the Toronto Film Festival, and at a party upstairs, we were crashing all these parties, having a great time.
He's shy.
Yeah, and in walked Quentin Tarantino.
And you introduced him.
I did, because David didn't want to go over and say hello. He was too shy, and he said, "No, I can't do that." I said, "Well, why not?" He said, "I just can't do that." Fine, I will.
Good.
So I went over to Quentin and introduced myself, and I said, "Look, my boyfriend's like a major fan of yours. He would love to meet you." And he looked me up and down. He goes, "Oh, really? Who's your boyfriend?" I went, "David Carradine." He was like, "Oh my God."
he was a big.
I have Americana. I have a movie.
Yeah, right.
So I literally took his hand, went over to David, and they were just, it was like a love fest.
Quentin is a great guy.
He is.
Yeah, I met him several times.
He is.
He's a real down-to-earth guy.
Yeah.
I used to go to Silver Spoon with Shelley Winters a lot, and he was always there,
Yeah?
David. Yeah. And Quentin, I mean, yeah. He was a great
Major
guy.
energy to the guy. So that's how the original introduction happened.
That's it.
And so for the next 6 years,
And they did movies together, didn't they?
well, it started with Kill Bill.
Kill Bill.
The problem was David
Michael
was
Parks was
drinking
in
at
that
the time.
with them there.
And Quentin wasn't convinced that David was like solid, so I invited Quentin to lunch the next day, which we did. And David serenaded him and Adam McGuire.
You're talking about drinking when you said solid.
Solid.
Is that what you mean?
A quart and a half a day, David was drinking.
He was drinking.
Yeah.
He drank a lot.
About 6 months, so that was September, so like March of 1996, he went sober. He said, I'm going to do this.
How did he behave when he was sober? From drinking so much? Yeah.
It was interesting.
Around the house, I mean.
Well, when we were in Toronto, he tried to stop drinking and he had a hell of a time. When we got to Los Angeles, it seemed to be fairly easy for him. He had a lot of motivation. People say, "Oh, you got him to stop drinking." No, I didn't get him to stop drinking. I provided, I think, inspiration and a lot of motivation.
Right.
But he really wanted to get his career back on track, and that was probably key for him, to get sober. And he was a little edgy, but it wasn't all that scary. I mean, I was prepared for the worst, But no, for the next 6 years, he really maintained, and it was fabulous.
How did he take care of his health? Was he healthy?
I think David was, because when he stopped drinking, the liver regenerated.
He looks
So
good
he
here,
was on herbs,
Marina.
and
You got a picture of him
we
in
ate
this
good.
book. Yeah, he ate good, huh?
Yeah.
What kind of food did he eat?
He pretty much ate everything. He loved steak tartare.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, love that raw meat. But he took a lot of Chinese herbs.
Chinese herb,
his
that's
dad
it.
had very bad arthritis, and David was starting to get that in his hands. He was starting to show
John
it.
Carradine had the worst arthritis
Yeah.
I'd ever seen. I used to see him at the Hyatt on Sunset drinking at
Very-
the bar,
yes.
and he used to pick up the glass with his hands are all twisted.
And David was starting to show that and started to feel it.
David was getting it?
He was getting it. So he was taking mega Chinese herbs,
Uh-huh.
and that really
That cured?
Well, yes, it cured it, but it really,
But it
really
helped.
Yeah.
This is their dog. Is this David's dog? Or your dog?
That's my beautiful,
Your lassie.
my
Tell
beloved
me.
collie Lulu.
That's Lulu.
My-
that is
my
the
love.
mother of, or daughter of Lassie?
Oh, she was the daughter of Lassie 8, sister to Lassie 9.
Oh, really?
And Bob Weatherwax, he was
Uh-huh.
still the godfather. Well, Lulu passed away a couple of years ago, but he was wonderful with her, and David helped me pick her out.
Uh-huh.
And I got Lulu in the business. She was a Ralph Lauren model, and I got her busy doing
Really?
movies and TV, and
That's great.
she was my right hand.
Did you keep working as an actress and model and
Well, the
when
thing
you're
is-
married to David?
I did. People have a misunderstanding that they think I latched on to David and I got all these films from David because it was like starting from zero. No. I had a really nice career in Toronto. I was very established. I had a lot of credits behind me.
Uh-huh.
When I got with David, I saw a person who needed help. I could do that. I had the
So you
experience.
devoted your time.
I did.
Yeah.
I didn't intend for it to become 6
No,
years
no.
from his manager.
You devoted your time.
And it just
towards-
became that way.
Yeah.
So when movies and opportunities did come up, I was pitching myself. Every once in a while, David did. He's like, hey, my wife, but it was kind
He
of
helped you.
awkward.
He helped you.
It was awkward sometimes.
Did he ever coach you as when you're reading your lines or something? Or-
No, he knew better than that.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
if I had an audition for Canada, I would have to self-tape. And he'd take over the whole thing. He would direct the scene and do.
Yeah,
But it got to a point where it's like, you know what, honey, this is really what I feel I want to do for this. And we, and so we stopped doing that.
This is a picture of David. Look at that sexy picture.
That's a
right there.
Sexy picture of Alan Weissman took of David. I said, David, you are a sexy man, and he didn't see himself that way. I said,
He
okay.
didn't, did he?
No. I said, this is what we're going to do. I said, wear the jacket, no shirt, and I directed the whole thing, did his makeup. We took the pictures, and as soon as we started getting that picture out, you started getting the really nice calls. So that was part of the revamp of David's career. It was a key picture. I smiled because it looked so wonderful.
This is his desk.
Yes, he had this corner in our Valley Vista home.
It looks like my desk. They're messy as ever.
And there's a window there because he smoked like 3 packs of cigarettes a day.
He smoked a lot, didn't he?
Oh my gosh. And so he was at the window so we could blow it out the window and keep it away from me.